A black woman named Olivia walked into an upscale clothing boutique managed by Ethan. Ethan's preconceived notions about who belonged there led to an unexpected and dramatic confrontation. What started as a simple visit to a new store for the observer turned into a public humiliation as Ethan wrongly accused her of not fitting in. But then, Olivia returned with her legal team, ready to expose the truth and set things right. What about this seemingly normal visit led to such a dramatic turn of events? Stay tuned to find out, but before we begin, let us know where you're watching from, and if you're finding these stories of life-altering moments fascinating, don't forget to subscribe. The upscale clothing store sat on the corner of a busy street, its large glass windows reflecting New York City's vibrant energy. The store was known for its luxurious fabrics, designer labels, and a clientele primarily composed of the wealthy elite. Inside, everything was immaculate, the marble floors gleaming under soft lighting, and meticulously arranged racks displayed garments that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The store was a status symbol, a place where being seen meant you had made it in life, and Ethan, the manager, loved everything about it. Ethan was a man in his early 40s, with slicked back hair and an air of superiority that was hard to miss. He prided himself on running what he often referred to as a high-class establishment. To him, the shop wasn't just a business. It was a reflection of his ability to cater to the most elite members of society. He had worked there for years, slowly climbing the ranks until he was entrusted with managing the entire place. Ethan made sure everything was perfect, from the way the mannequins were dressed to the way the customers were treated, at least certain customers. For Ethan, the ideal shopper was someone who looked successful, which usually meant wealthy, well-dressed, and often white. He tended to gravitate toward customers who fit that mold, giving them special attention and preferential treatment. But when someone walked in who didn't quite meet his expectations, he would subtly dismiss them, assuming they didn't belong. On this particular day, Ethan stood near the cash register, his sharp eyes scanning the shop. A well-dressed couple had just entered, and he flashed them a charming smile, already strategizing how he could upsell them on some of the more expensive items. As they made their way toward the designer jackets, Ethan discreetly directed one of the sales associates to attend to them. The door chimed, and Ethan's attention shifted to another customer who had just walked in, but this one didn't quite capture his interest. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or expensive jewelry. Instead, she sported simple jeans, a loose-fitting sweater, and sneakers. She moved with grace, her brown skin glowing under the soft lights, but Ethan's eyes barely registered her. To him, she was just another passerby who probably wouldn't buy anything. This woman was Olivia. Olivia was a successful businesswoman, although you wouldn't guess it from her casual attire. She had just acquired this very store through a business investment deal, but nobody knew it yet. Not the employees, not the customers, and certainly not Ethan. She had decided to visit the shop incognito before making her official appearance as the new owner. It was her way of observing how things were run without the fanfare that usually came with such an announcement. As Olivia walked deeper into the shop, she immediately sensed a subtle shift in the energy. It wasn't overt, but it was there, the way the sales associates seemed to gravitate toward certain customers, while others, like herself, were left to wander. Olivia was no stranger to this kind of treatment. She had encountered it before in various forms and in different places, but today it stung a little more, as this was now her store. She happened upon a display of dresses, running her fingers over the fabric. From the corner of her eye, she saw Ethan standing by the register talking to the couple. He was smiling, gesturing toward different items, and clearly making an effort to impress them. Olivia couldn't help but smile to herself. She wasn't there to be impressed. She was there to observe. Ethan glanced in her direction for a fleeting moment, then quickly looked away. He had already written her off as someone who didn't belong. He didn't bother to offer her the warm greeting he had extended to the others. Olivia made a mental note of the interaction but remained composed. She wasn't looking for special treatment, just fair treatment. As she wandered through the shop, she made mental notes. The sales associates seemed competent enough, but there was a clear bias in how they distributed their attention. She saw one of the associates hovering near a woman in designer clothes, offering suggestions and compliments, while another customer who appeared to be browsing with genuine interest was completely ignored. Olivia wondered how much business the shop was losing because of these subtle acts of exclusion. Olivia spent the better part of an hour observing the shop, carefully taking stock of how things were run. She had seen enough to understand the culture that Ethan had fostered. She was now ready to leave, but before she could reach the door, Ethan's eyes fell on her again. This time, his gaze was more focused, his expression less subtle. Something had shifted in his demeanor, and Olivia could feel it. As she moved forward, Ethan stepped up, blocking her path just as she passed one of the expensive dress racks. He wasn't smiling this time, his posture was stiff, and his voice carried a hint of superiority. "Excuse me," he said, in a tone that suggested this wasn't a friendly offer of assistance. "Are you sure you're finding everything you need? Perhaps I could help you find something more within your budget." Olivia stopped and looked at him as calm as ever. She had seen this play out before, not just in stores like this, but in countless other places. Restaurants, airports, even on the street. People like Ethan always thought they knew who belonged and who didn't, and they were usually wrong. She looked him directly in the eye, unfazed. "Thank you," she replied with a polite smile. "I'm just looking." Ethan's eyes flashed with impatience. He wasn't used to being dismissed, especially by someone he had already deemed unworthy of the shop's high-end merchandise. He cleared his throat and took a step closer, lowering his voice as if they were sharing a secret. "I'm just saying," he continued, "we have a lot of exclusive items here. Not everything is within everyone's reach, if you know what I mean." Olivia felt the weight of his words, but her expression didn't change. She wasn't there to argue with him, at least not yet. She had bigger plans for this store, and Ethan was just a small piece of the puzzle. Instead, she simply nodded, giving him no reason to escalate the situation further. "I appreciate your concern," Olivia said, her voice steady, "but I'm fine." Ethan blinked, clearly not expecting her calm response. He seemed momentarily thrown off balance, unsure of what to do next. His eyes darted toward the register, where another customer was being helped, but then they quickly returned to Olivia. She could tell that he wasn't finished. "Well, if you need anything," he said, trying to regain his composure, "just let me know." Olivia nodded at him again, then turned back toward the display she had been examining. For a moment, she thought that would be the end of it, but as she headed toward the back area of the shop, she noticed Ethan was following her. He wasn't making any effort to hide it now. His face had hardened with suspicion, and his earlier pretense of politeness had vanished. Olivia pretended not to notice him as she made her way toward the velvet rope that separated the more exclusive items from the rest of the shop. She had every right to be there and could easily afford anything in that area, but she could feel Ethan's disapproving gaze as if it were a physical barrier. She stepped over the rope, determined not to let his judgment affect her, but it wasn't long before he intervened. "Ma'am," Ethan said sharply, appearing beside her once again. This time, there was no pretense of offering assistance. "I'm going to have to ask you to stay in the front area of the shop." Olivia turned to him, her expression cool but questioning. "I'm sorry? This area is reserved for our more high-end clientele," he said, his voice tight. "I'm sure you understand." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly do you determine who qualifies as a high-end client?" Ethan hesitated, clearly taken aback by her directness. His eyes flicked to a few other people in the shop, most of whom were watching the interaction with curious eyes. He quickly tried to recover, but the tension had already ratcheted up. "I didn't mean anything by it," Ethan said, his tone defensive. "It's just that this area isn't for everyone." Olivia crossed her arms, regarding him with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. She wasn't sure if Ethan realized how deep he was digging himself, but she was content to let him keep talking. "And what makes you think it's not for me?" she asked calmly. Ethan's face flushed slightly, and his frustration became more evident. "I just don't want anyone to get the wrong idea," he said. "We've had incidents before, people coming and touching things they can't afford, even stealing items." Olivia's composure wavered for a split second, and Ethan caught it. He mistook the flash of anger in her eyes as confirmation that he was right. "So you think I'm here to steal something?" Olivia asked, her voice low but firm. Ethan floundered, but he wasn't about to back down. "I didn't say that," he replied quickly. "But you have to understand, I'm responsible for this store, and I can't have just anyone wandering around the exclusive area. It's for your own good." Olivia let out a short laugh, shaking her head. "For my own good?" she repeated, disbelief evident in her voice. Ethan seemed to realize how ridiculous he sounded, but instead of retreating, he doubled down. "Look, I don't want to cause a scene," he said, glancing around at the growing number of customers who were watching. "I'm just asking you to respect the shop's policies. If you can't do that, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Olivia's eyes narrowed. She had had enough of being patient. It was one thing for Ethan to make assumptions, but now he was crossing a line that he wouldn't be able to uncross. Still, she maintained her composure, refusing to give him the reaction he seemed to be expecting. "I'm not breaking any policies," Olivia said, her voice steady. "I'm a customer, and I have a right to be here, just like anyone else." Ethan shook his head, clearly growing more frustrated. He stepped closer to her, lowering his voice once again, although loud enough for others to hear. "Listen, lady," he hissed. "You're causing a disturbance. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling security." Olivia didn't flinch. She stood her ground, looking him directly in the eye with an intensity that made him pause. The other customers were openly watching now, whispering among themselves as they tried to make sense of what was happening. Ethan, however, seemed oblivious to the fact that he was digging himself deeper and deeper. "Call security if you want," Olivia said, her voice calm but unwavering. "But I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, Ethan hesitated. He clearly hadn't expected her to stand up to him, and for the first time, there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but it quickly vanished, replaced by the same arrogance that had fueled his behavior since Olivia had walked through the door. "Fine," Ethan said sharply. "You want to play it that way, let's see what security has to say about this." He turned and strode quickly toward the back of the shop, leaving Olivia standing there. The other customers were whispering even louder now, some of them glancing at her with curiosity, others with disapproval, but Olivia didn't care. She had dealt with far worse than this, and she wasn't about to let Ethan intimidate her. As she waited, she could feel the weight of the situation settling over the shop. The atmosphere had shifted from one of casual shopping to one of tense anticipation. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next, but Olivia remained calm, her mind focused on the bigger picture. A few minutes later, Ethan returned with 2 security guards in tow. He had a smug look on his face, as if he had already won the battle. The security guards looked uncertain, but they followed Ethan's lead, approaching Olivia with cautious steps. "Ma'am," one of the security guards said, his voice polite but firm, "we're going to have to ask you to leave the shop." Olivia looked at him, her expression neutral. "And why is that?" The guard hesitated, glancing at Ethan for guidance. Ethan stepped forward, eager to take control of the situation. "She's causing a disturbance," Ethan said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, refusing to follow the shop's policies. "We can't have that kind of behavior here." Olivia let out a small sigh, shaking her head. She had given Ethan so many opportunities to stop this, but he clearly wasn't going to back down, and now he had made it a public spectacle. "I'm not causing a disturbance," Olivia said, her voice clear and composed. "I'm simply shopping, just like everyone else." The security guard shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure of how to handle the situation. He glanced at the other customers, some of whom were watching intently, while others pretended not to notice. "Look, ma'am," the guard said, his voice lowered. "I don't want to make this more difficult than it has to be. Can we just avoid a scene?" Olivia's eyes flashed with annoyance. This was exactly what Ethan wanted, a public humiliation, a spectacle for everyone in the shop to see that people like her didn't belong. "I'm not going anywhere," Olivia said firmly. "I haven't done anything wrong." Ethan's face contorted with anger, and he stepped forward again, his voice growing louder. "You've done plenty wrong," he snapped. "You don't belong here. You're loitering, you're causing a disturbance, and you're making my staff uncomfortable. Now either you leave or I'm going to have these gentlemen escort you out." Olivia didn't budge. She stood her ground, her gaze unwavering as she stared into Ethan's angry eyes. Olivia stood firm even as the tension in the shop escalated with each passing second. Ethan's words stung, but she didn't let it show. She was no stranger to these situations, where her success, wealth, and dignity were questioned simply because of her appearance. But today wasn't just another moment to rise above the insults. Today was about making a change. She could feel the eyes of the customers on her, some watching with sympathy, others with judgment, but none of it mattered at this moment. Her focus was solely on Ethan and the choice he was about to make. Instead of escalating the situation further, Olivia took a deep breath, steeling her resolve. She wouldn't reveal who she was just yet. Ethan's behavior was unacceptable, but she wanted to give him one last chance to show a modicum of decency. After all, everyone deserved an opportunity to redeem themselves, even someone as prejudiced as him. In a steady voice, she said, "I would like to speak to the owner of the shop." The calmness in her voice caught Ethan off guard. He had expected more resistance, perhaps even a scene, but Olivia's composed request threw him for a loop for a moment. He hesitated, but it didn't last long. A smug grin crept across Ethan's face, and he let out a derisive laugh. "You want to speak to the owner?" He repeated, condescension dripping from his words. "Listen, honey, the owner wouldn't waste their time on someone like you." Olivia raised an eyebrow, but she didn't let those. His words stung. "Someone like me?" she asked, her voice even pressing him to elaborate. Ethan shrugged, his smug smile widening. "Look, I'm trying to be nice here. The owner deals with real customers, upscale clientele, people who actually belong in this store. You've already caused a scene, and now you're asking for something beyond your reach. Can we just end it here?" Olivia's gaze didn't waver. "I'm requesting a conversation with the owner. That's not too much to ask." Ethan's patience was wearing thin, and his annoyance became more apparent. "Are you not listening? I told you the owner doesn't have time for this nonsense. Why don't you just leave before things get worse?" Olivia could see where this was going, but she remained calm, refusing to be baited. She wouldn't let him bully her into leaving, but she also knew this was no longer a time for argument. Ethan was too consumed by his own arrogance to realize the gravity of what he was doing. If he wasn't willing to listen to reason, it was time for her to take control of the situation. "Fine," Olivia said quietly, her voice cold and steady. "If you won't let me speak to the owner, then I'll leave." Ethan looked almost triumphant, as if he'd won some sort of victory. He nodded, waving his hand dismissively. "Good choice. Now if you'll just—" Before he could finish, Olivia added, "But I'll be back." Her words carried a weight that Ethan didn't seem to fully grasp, but the other employees and several onlookers did. There was something in the way she said it that gave them pause, but Ethan, lost in his sense of self-importance, missed its significance. Yeah, he muttered, already turning away. "Just make sure you don't come back unless you're actually planning on buying something." Olivia didn't reply. She calmly walked toward the exit, her steps measured and deliberate. Ethan watched her leave with a smug look on his face, completely oblivious to the storm he had just stirred up. Once outside, Olivia took a deep breath, her composure still intact. She wasn't angry, at least not in the way Ethan probably assumed she was. She had learned long ago that anger rarely solved anything. What she felt now was a quiet determination. This wasn't just about setting things right. It was about ensuring that Ethan, and anyone like him, would never treat others this way again. She reached into her purse, pulling out her phone. It was time to put her plan into action. She dialed the number of her business partner, Michael, a sharp and savvy lawyer who had been with her throughout the acquisition process. "Michael," she said when he answered. "We need to move forward." Michael's tone shifted immediately. "What's wrong?" Olivia gave him a rundown of the situation, explaining Ethan's behavior and how he had treated her. Michael, ever the professional, listened intently, but Olivia could hear the simmering frustration in his voice as she recounted the events. He called security on you? Michael asked incredulously. He did, Olivia confirmed. But that wasn't even the worst of it. It was his attitude, the way he treated customers, especially those who didn't fit his idea of upscale. This isn't just about me. It's about the culture he's created in that store. Michael was silent for a moment, processing everything. Okay, he said finally. What's the plan? Olivia glanced back at the entrance to the shop, her mind already made up. I'm going back, she said. But this time I'm bringing you and the rest of the team with me. It's time Ethan met the real owner. Michael chuckled softly. This is going to be interesting. Olivia smiled, though there was no humor in it. You have no idea. Later that day, the atmosphere in the shop had returned to its usual rhythm. Ethan, feeling rather pleased with himself, was back to overseeing the staff, making sure everything ran smoothly. He didn't give much thought to the woman he had escorted out earlier. In his mind, she was just another customer who didn't belong, a minor inconvenience in an otherwise successful day. But that sense of satisfaction wasn't going to last for long. It started with the front doors opening and Olivia stepping back into the shop. This time, however, she wasn't alone. Dressed in a sharply tailored business suit, she exuded an undeniable aura of power. Beside her were two well-dressed lawyers, including Michael, and a small group of associates. Their presence immediately drew attention, and the usual hum of the shop quieted as people turned to look. Ethan, who was near the back of the shop, spotted the group and frowned. He didn't recognize Olivia at first. Her earlier casual attire had been replaced with a professional outfit that screamed success and authority. For a brief moment, he thought she was just another wealthy customer. But then their eyes met, and the realization hit him like a ton of bricks. His face paled. Olivia walked forward with purpose, her expression unreadable, as Ethan scrambled to recover. He straightened his posture, trying to mask his shock with a veneer of professionalism. But the damage was done. The other employees watched in confusion, unsure of what was happening, but sensing that something big was about to unfold. Ethan hurried forward, his earlier arrogance replaced by anxiety. Well, he stammered, forcing a smile. I wasn't expecting to see you back so soon. Is there something I can help you with? Olivia didn't answer immediately. Instead, she let her gaze sweep across the shop, taking in the employees and customers, all of whom were now watching the unfolding scene. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable authority in it. I'd like to speak with the owner, she said. Ethan blinked, momentarily taken aback. The owner, he repeated, his voice faltering. That's right, Olivia replied smoothly. The owner. It was at that moment that the full weight of her words began to sink in for Ethan. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The realization hit him like a freight train, and his face grew even paler. Olivia allowed him a moment to process, then continued. I believe you mentioned earlier that the owner wouldn't waste their time on someone like me. Ethan's jaw slackened slightly, but no words came. The other employees were staring now, whispering to each other in hushed tones. The truth was becoming apparent to everyone in the shop, and the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Olivia took a step closer, her eyes locked on Ethan. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Olivia Carter, the new owner of this establishment. Ethan recoiled as if the words had physically struck him. He stood frozen, his former smugness completely evaporated, replaced by sheer panic. The silence in the shop was deafening, and everyone seemed to be holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Olivia didn't give him much time to react. She gestured to Michael and the other members of her legal team. These are my associates, she continued. We're here to discuss some changes that need to be made to the way this store is run, effective immediately. Ethan's mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. He didn't know what to say, no way to backpedal from the mess that he had created. He had insulted and humiliated the very person who owned the shop that he thought he controlled. Michael stepped forward, pulling out some papers. Ms. Carter has been reviewing the operations of this store, he said, his tone professional but firm. And there are, shall we say, some serious concerns about the way things have been handled, starting with your behavior today. Ethan was speechless. He could feel his world crumbling around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. I didn't know. Ethan stammered, his voice trembling. I swear, I had no idea. Michael stood silently beside Olivia, his presence a silent reminder of the seriousness of the situation. Olivia, however, remained calm, her expression unreadable as she watched Ethan squirm. I'm sure you didn't, Olivia responded coolly, crossing her arms. But that doesn't change what happened, does it? Ethan swallowed hard, his mind racing to come up with an explanation, something that might salvage the situation. I made a mistake, he said, his tone now pleading. I didn't mean anything by it. I just thought you were a customer who didn't. Didn't what? Olivia interjected, her voice still calm but sharper now. Didn't belong here? Ethan's eyes widened and he shook his head frantically. No, that's not what I meant. I wasn't sure you weren't like. Olivia held up her hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. Like what, Ethan? A typical customer? The kind of person you think deserves to be treated with respect? Ethan's already flushed face turned an even deeper shade of red, his embarrassment evident as he fumbled for the right words. No, I didn't mean anything by it. I'm really sorry. It was a misunderstanding. Olivia sighed softly, her patience wearing thin. Ethan, do you realize how offensive and discriminatory your behavior was today? You judged me based on my appearance, based on your assumptions about who belongs in this store. And it's not just me. I've seen how you treat other customers who don't fit your narrow idea of what's acceptable. Ethan's panic deepened as he glanced around the shop. The other customers had begun to murmur amongst themselves, watching the confrontation unfold. Several customers who had previously sided with Ethan now looked uncomfortable, realizing that they had been complicit in his treatment of Olivia. I swear I didn't mean for any of this to happen, Ethan said desperately. I was just trying to do my job. I didn't mean to. Your job? Olivia interrupted again, her voice hardening, is to treat every customer with respect, regardless of how they look or what you assume about them. You failed to do that. Instead, you chose to humiliate me to make me feel like I didn't belong here. And you would have done the same to anyone else who didn't fit your limited vision of this store. Ethan looked like he was about to faint, his body rigid with fear. Please, Miss Carter, I beg you. I'll do better, I'll change. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. It was a huge mistake, but I promise I'll make it right. Olivia observed him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. She knew that his apologies were motivated more by self-preservation than by any genuine remorse for his actions. Still, she had given him the opportunity to explain, although that didn't seem to have helped him any. I gave you a chance, Ethan, Olivia said. I asked to speak to the owner earlier, and you laughed in my face. You had the opportunity to change your approach, to correct your behavior, but instead you doubled down. You were arrogant, dismissive, and prejudiced. Ethan's heart was pounding in his chest. His entire career, his livelihood was on the line. He could feel the weight of his mistakes bearing down on him, and he was running out of ways to excuse his behavior. Please, Miss Carter, he pleaded, his voice trembling. I'll do anything to make this right. I don't want to lose my job. I'll try harder. I'll be better. Please don't fire me. Olivia raised an eyebrow, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Becoming better isn't a favor you're doing for me. It's the bare minimum that should be expected of you. But now I have to ask myself if you're the right person to continue managing this store, if you're capable of creating an inclusive and respectful space for everyone. Ethan's face crumpled, and he looked like he was about to cry. The desperation in his voice was palpable as he made one last attempt to plead his case. Ms. Carter, I've worked here for years. I've been loyal to this store, to its reputation. I just didn't know. Please just give me a chance to make this right. Olivia let the silence hang in the air for a moment, weighing his words. She could see the fear in his eyes, the panic that came from realizing just how badly he had messed up. But this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the culture of the shop, the kind of environment she wanted to foster here. Finally, she spoke. I'm going to give you an ultimatum, Ethan. Either you voluntarily resign from your position as manager, effective immediately, or I will terminate your employment right here and now. Ethan gasped, and he stared at her in shock. He hadn't expected such a direct, non-negotiable response. His mind was reeling as he tried to process the gravity of what she was saying. Olivia continued, her tone firm but fair. This store is going to be run differently from now on. It will be a place where every customer, regardless of their race, appearance, or background, is treated with respect and dignity. If you can't be a part of that, then there's no place for you here. Ethan looked like the ground had been ripped out from under his feet. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He was trapped, with no way to undo what had happened. His pride, his arrogance, everything that had defined his career as manager, had come back to haunt him. The customers and employees of the shop were still watching, their murmurs growing louder. They had seen Ethan at his worst, and now they were witnessing his downfall. Some looked uncomfortable, while others seemed almost relieved to see justice being served. Oh, I'll resign, Ethan finally whispered, his voice barely audible. Olivia nodded, her expression still calm but resolute. That's the right choice. Michael stepped forward, offering Ethan a pen and some papers to sign. Ethan's hands trembled as he took the pen, his face flushed with shame. He scrawled his name on the document, officially relinquishing his position as manager. With the paperwork signed, Olivia took a step closer to Ethan, her voice softer now. I hope this is a lesson for you, Ethan. You need to reflect on why you behaved the way you did and how you can do better in the future. This isn't just about losing a job. It's about learning from your mistakes. Ethan nodded numbly, unable to meet her eyes. He had been stripped of everything he thought was important, and now all he could do was walk away with what little dignity he had left. The tension in the air was palpable as Ethan, his face ashen and his shoulders slumped, slowly made his way toward the back of the shop. The other employees watched in stunned silence, their eyes darting back and forth between Ethan's retreating figure and Olivia's composed demeanor. It was clear that a seismic shift had just occurred, and everyone in the shop could feel the aftershocks. Olivia took a deep breath, allowing herself a moment to process what had just happened. She hadn't come here looking for a confrontation, but Ethan's actions had left her with no other choice. Now, as the new owner, it was her responsibility to set things right, not just for herself but for every customer who might walk through that door in the future. Michael leaned in, his voice low. That went as well as it could have, he murmured. What's your next move? Olivia's gaze swept across the shop, meeting the eyes of the confused and curious faces. Some of the employees looked anxious, unsure if their jobs were on the line. Others seemed almost relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. It was clear that Ethan's leadership style had affected more people than just the customers. We need to address everyone, Olivia replied quietly. It's time to set a new tone for this place. Michael nodded, then turned to gather the rest of their team. Meanwhile, Olivia stepped forward, her presence commanding attention even without her needing to say a word. The murmuring among the customers subsided, and all eyes were on her. Ladies and gentlemen, Olivia began, her voice clear, and stability. I want to apologize for the disruption you've just witnessed. What you saw is not representative of the values this store will uphold going forward. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. A few customers nodded in agreement, while others leaned in, eager to hear more. My name is Olivia Carter, and as of today, I am the new owner of this establishment. I came here incognito to observe how things were run, and I must say, I was deeply disappointed by what I saw. Olivia's gaze swept across the room, making eye contact with as many people as possible. This store has a reputation for luxury and exclusivity, but somewhere along the line, that exclusivity morphed into discrimination. That ends now. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some of the regular patrons looked uncomfortable, perhaps recognizing their own complicity in the shop's toxic culture. Others, particularly those who had previously felt unwelcome, seemed to stand a little taller, emboldened by Olivia's words. From this moment forward, Olivia continued, her voice growing stronger, this store will be a place of inclusion and respect. We will continue to offer the finest products, but our true luxury will lie in how we treat every person who walks through that door. She gestured towards the entrance, where a group of potential customers had gathered, drawn in by the commotion inside. Olivia gave them a warm smile, a stark contrast to the coldness they might have received just hours before. To those of you who have felt unwelcome here in the past, I offer my sincerest apologies. I invite you to give us another chance. And to our loyal customers, I ask for your support as we make these necessary changes. True luxury isn't about excluding others. It's about lifting everyone up. As Olivia finished her address, a spontaneous round of applause erupted. It started small, just a few people near the front, but quickly spread throughout the shop. Even some of the employees who had looked anxious just moments before joined in, their faces a mixture of relief and hope. Michael stepped forward, handing Olivia a stack of papers. She nodded her thanks, then turned to address the crowd once more. Now I'd like to speak with all the employees. If you are currently working, please gather near the main counter. As for our customers, we will be closing the shop early today to facilitate this transition. We apologize for any inconvenience and hope to see you again soon. As the customers began to file out, many of them stopped to shake Olivia's hand or offer words of encouragement. One elderly woman, dressed in a beautiful silk suit and wearing pearls, paused in front of Olivia, her eyes glistening with tears. I've been coming to this store for 30 years, the woman said, her voice trembling, and I'm ashamed to say that I've never spoken up when I saw others being treated poorly. Thank you for doing what needed to be done. Olivia gently took the woman's hand. Thank you for your honesty. It's never too late to stand up for what's right. As the last of the customers trickled out, Olivia turned her attention to the employees. They had gathered near the counter as instructed, their faces a mixture of curiosity, anxiety, and in some cases, barely concealed hope. Olivia could see the diversity among them. People of different ages, races, and backgrounds, and she wondered how many of them had suffered under Ethan's leadership. First of all, Olivia began, her voice warm but professional. I want to assure you that your jobs are safe. What happened today with Ethan was a direct response to his actions and the culture he fostered. It does not reflect on any of you. A collective sigh of relief swept through the group. Shoulders relaxed, and a few tentative smiles began to emerge. However, Olivia continued, her tone becoming more serious. We will be making some significant changes to the way this store operates. I need to know that each and every one of you is on board with creating a more respectful and inclusive environment for all of our customers. She paused, looking each employee in the eye. If anyone feels they cannot commit to this new direction, now is the time to say so. There will be no judgment, and we will provide letters of recommendation and assistance finding new employment. But going forward, there will be zero tolerance for any form of discrimination or disrespect towards our customers or our fellow employees. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a young woman in the back tentatively raised her hand. Olivia nodded encouragingly, inviting her to speak. Ms. Carter, the woman began, her voice soft but firm, my name is Emma. I've worked here for 2 years, and I've seen a lot of things that have made me uncomfortable, but I was afraid to speak up because I need this job. I want you to know that I am completely on board with these changes. Thank you for doing this. Olivia gave Emma a warm smile. Thank you for your honesty, Emma. Your voice and your experiences are valuable, and I want you to know that you will always be heard here. Emboldened by Emma's words, others began to speak up. A middle-aged man named Daniel shared how he had been passed over for promotions despite his experience, while a young sales associate named Noah recounted instances where he had been asked to keep a closer eye on certain customers based solely on their appearance. As Olivia listened to their stories, she felt a mixture of sadness and determination. The culture of discrimination ran deeper than she had initially thought, but the fact that so many employees were eager for change gave her hope. Thank you all for sharing, Olivia said, once everyone had had their say. Your experiences and insights are invaluable as we move forward. Now, let's talk about specific changes. She gestured to Michael, who began to hand out packets to each of the employees. In these packets, you will find our new company policies regarding customer service, anti-discrimination measures, and employee conduct. Please review them carefully. We will be holding training sessions over the next few weeks to ensure that everyone understands and can effectively implement these policies. As the employees perused their packets, Olivia continued. We will also be making some changes to our inventory and our marketing. We will still offer luxury items, but we will expand our range to include a wider variety of styles, sizes, and price points. Our goal is to make every customer feel like they belong here, regardless of their budget. A ripple of excitement spread through the group. Some of the employees nodded in approval, while others began to whisper amongst themselves, already brainstorming ideas. In addition, Olivia said, raising her voice slightly to regain their attention, we will be implementing a new feedback system. This will allow both customers and employees to report any issues or concerns anonymously. We want to create an environment where everyone feels safe speaking up. She paused, letting her words sink in. Finally, I want to address the issue of leadership. With Ethan gone, we will obviously need a new manager to help guide this transition. I have decided that rather than bringing someone in from the outside, I would like to promote from within. This announcement caused a stir among the employees. People straightened up, their eyes widening with interest and, in some cases, ambition. Olivia held up a hand to quiet the murmuring, however, and continued. This decision will not be made lightly or quickly. Over the next month, I will be working closely with all of you. I want to see who embodies the values we are promoting, who demonstrates initiative in implementing our new policies, and who displays true leadership skills. She smiled, her eyes twinkling with a hint of challenge. Consider this your probationary period. Show me what you're capable of, not just in sales or customer service, but in creating the kind of inclusive, respectful environment we want this store to be known for. The energy in the room had palpably shifted. Where there had been uncertainty and fear, there was now excitement and determination. Olivia could see the spark of motivation in their eyes, an eagerness to prove themselves and to be a part of something better. All right, Olivia said, clapping her hands together. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but I believe in each and every one of you. Let's spend the rest of the day reviewing these new policies. Ethanoro, we will reopen our doors with a fresh start and a new outlook. Any questions? Hands shot up around the room, and Olivia spent the next hour addressing concerns, clarifying points, and brainstorming ideas with her employees. By the time the last question had been answered, the sun had begun to set outside the shop's large windows, casting a warm glow on the interior. As the employees began to gather their belongings and prepare to leave, Olivia noticed Emma, the young woman who had spoken up earlier, lingering near the counter. She approached her with a gentle smile. Emma, isn't it? Olivia asked. Is everything all right? Emma nodded, nervously twisting her hands. Yes, Miss Carter, it's just, I wanted to thank you again, and I was wondering, well, I have some ideas about how we could make the shop even more welcoming. Would it be all right if I shared them with you sometime? Olivia's smile widened. Of course, Emma. In fact, why don't you come in a little early tomorrow? We can discuss your ideas over coffee before we open. Emma's face lit up. Really? That would be amazing. Thank you so much, Miss Carter. As Emma hurried off to gather her things, Olivia felt a warm sense of satisfaction wash over her. This was just the beginning, but she could already see the potential for real, positive change. Michael approached, a small smile playing on his lips. Seems like you've lit a fire under them already, he observed. Do you think this place has a chance? Olivia nodded, her gaze sweeping across the shop. More than a chance, Michael. We are going to turn this place around. It won't be easy, and I'm sure we'll face some resistance along the way, but we're going to create something special here. As the last of the employees departed, calling out their goodbyes, Olivia and Michael began a final walkthrough of the shop. They discussed logistics, reviewed the new policies, and strategized about the challenges ahead. It was well past closing time when they finally finished. Standing in the entryway, Olivia took one last look at the shop before setting the alarm. In the stillness of the empty space, she could almost see the potential shimmering in the air, the promise of what this place could become. "Ready?" Michael asked, holding the door open. Olivia nodded, stepping out into the cool evening air. As they walked down the street, the shop's windows glowed softly behind them, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Ethanora would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities, and she was ready for them all. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a perfect metaphor for the fresh start that awaited the shop. Olivia arrived early, a tray of coffee cups balanced in one hand and a box of pastries in the other. She wanted to set the right tone from the outset, one of warmth, inclusivity, and shared purpose. As she unlocked the front door, she was surprised to find Emma already waiting, a thick notebook clutched tightly to her chest. The young woman's eagerness brought a smile to Olivia's face. "Good morning, Emma," Olivia greeted warmly. "I see you're just as excited about today as I am. Come on in." They settled at a small table near the back of the shop, the early morning sunlight streaming through the windows and casting a golden glow on the displays. As Olivia poured coffee for both of them, Emma began to flip through her notebook. "Ms. Carter, I hope you don't mind, but I stayed up most of the night working on these ideas," Emma said, her voice a mixture of nervousness and excitement. "I've been thinking about ways we could make the shop more inclusive for a long time, but I never felt like I could speak up before." Olivia leaned forward, genuinely curious. "I'm all ears, Emma, and please call me Olivia." Over the next hour, as they sipped their coffee and nibbled on pastries, Emma presented a series of innovative and thoughtful ideas. She suggested reorganizing the shop layout to make it more accessible, proposing partnerships with local artists from diverse backgrounds to showcase their work, and even presented a rough outline for a community outreach program that would offer styling workshops to people of all shapes and sizes. Olivia listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes or asking questions. She was impressed not only by the ideas themselves, but also by the passion and thoughtfulness that Emma had put into them. It was clear that this young woman had been quietly observing and planning for a long time, just waiting for an opportunity to make a difference. As Emma finished presenting her last idea, she looked up at Olivia anxiously, awaiting her reaction. Olivia set down her coffee cup and smiled radiantly. "Emma, these ideas are fantastic," she said warmly. "You've clearly put a lot of thought into this, and I can see how much you care about making this store a better place. I want to implement some of these ideas right away and explore others in more detail." Emma's face lit up with joy and relief. "Really? You mean it?" Olivia nodded. "Absolutely. In fact, I'd like you to take the lead on some of these projects. You have a unique perspective and a clear vision for what this store can be. That's exactly the kind of initiative and leadership I'm looking for." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, and she quickly wiped them away. "Thank you, Olivia. You have no idea how much this means to me. I've always loved fashion and retail, but I hate how exclusive and unwelcoming it can be. I want to help change that." Olivia reached across the table and took Emma's hand. "And you will. We both will. Now let's start planning how we're going to make these ideas a reality." As they dove into their discussion, the other employees began to arrive. Olivia greeted each one personally, making sure they felt welcomed and appreciated. She could see the mix of anticipation and trepidation on their faces. They all knew that today marked a new era for the shop. Once everyone had arrived, Olivia gathered them together for a quick morning meeting. She outlined the goals for the day, reminded everyone of the new policies, and emphasized the importance of making every customer feel welcome. "Remember," she said, looking around at each face, "today we're not just selling clothes or accessories, we're selling an experience of respect, inclusivity, and genuine care for our customers. Every interaction is an opportunity to demonstrate what this store stands for." As she finished speaking, the employees broke into applause. The energy in the room was palpable, a far cry from the tense atmosphere of the previous day. Olivia could see the determination in their eyes, a shared commitment to making this new vision a reality. Just before opening time, as everyone was getting into position, the front door chimed. Olivia looked up, surprised. They weren't open yet, but her surprise turned to a warm smile as she saw who it was. Ethan stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable and out of place, lacking the usual confidence of a manager. He shifted from one foot to the other, his eyes darting around the shop before settling on Olivia. "Ms. Carter," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I hope you don't mind me coming here. I wanted to apologize properly this time." Olivia slowly approached him, aware that the employees were watching the exchange with rapt attention. "Thank you for coming back, Ethan. It must have been difficult for you." Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "It was, but after I left yesterday, I couldn't stop thinking about about how I've been acting, the things I've said and done. I'm ashamed, Miss Carter. I've been doing a lot of soul-searching, and I realize now just how wrong I've been, not just with you, but with so many other people over the years." Olivia remained silent, listening, her expression neutral yet attentive. She could see the genuine remorse in Ethan's eyes, the way his shoulders slumped under the weight of his realizations. "I don't expect to be forgiven," Ethan continued, his voice gaining strength. "And I'm not here to ask for my job back. I needed to come and apologize to you and to everyone else I hurt with my actions." He turned to address the employees who were watching the exchange with a mixture of surprise and weariness. "I owe all of you an apology, too. I was a terrible leader, and I fostered a toxic environment. I am truly sorry for that." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, to everyone's surprise, Emma stepped forward. "Thank you, Ethan," she said softly. "That couldn't have been easy to say." A few other employees nodded, murmuring words of acknowledgement. The tension in the room began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of closure. Olivia finally spoke, her voice firm but without malice. "Thank you for coming back and apologizing, Ethan. It shows a level of self-reflection and courage that I hope you continue to cultivate. While we can't erase the past, we can learn from it and do better in the future." Ethan nodded, blinking back tears. "I intend to. I've decided to take some time off, maybe do some volunteer work. I want to learn how to be a better person, how to treat others with the respect they deserve." Olivia smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression. "That sounds like a wonderful plan, Ethan. I wish you the best of luck on your journey." As Ethan turned to leave, Olivia called out one last time, "And Ethan, if you ever want to come back as a customer, you'll be welcomed here, just like anyone else." Ethan's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with gratitude. He nodded again before heading out the door, the chime tinkling softly behind him. As Olivia turned back to her employees, she could see the impact of the moment written on their faces. It was as if the last vestiges of the old regime had been swept away, clearing the way for something new and better to grow. "All right, everyone," Olivia said, clapping her hands together. "That was an unexpected but important start to our day. Now let's focus on what's ahead. We open in 5 minutes. Remember, today is about fresh starts. For us, for our customers, and for this store. Let's make it count." The employees dispersed to their stations, a new energy in their steps. Olivia moved to the front of the shop, her hand resting on the lock. As the clock struck opening time, she turned the key and swung the door open. The first customer to enter was an elderly woman, the same one who had spoken with Olivia the day before. She stepped inside hesitantly, looking around as if seeing the place for the first time. "Welcome," Olivia greeted her warmly. "We're so glad to have you here." The woman smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Thank you, dear. I must say, there's something different about this place already. Feels lighter, somehow." As Olivia escorted her inside, more customers began to arrive. Some were regulars, curious about the changes they had heard about. Others were new faces, drawn in by the welcoming atmosphere that seemed to radiate from the shop. Throughout the day, Olivia watched with pride as her employees rose to the occasion. She saw Emma confidently assisting a group of teenagers who might have been shooed away in the past. Daniel patiently helping an elderly gentleman navigate the new, more accessible store layout, and Noah engaging in a lively conversation with a customer about the local artist whose work was now gracing the walls. Of course, there were challenges. Some longtime customers grumbled about the changes, uncomfortable with the more diverse clientele. A few even left in a huff, declaring that they would take their business elsewhere. But for every customer lost, there seemed to be 2 new ones to take their place, drawn in by the shop's newfound reputation for inclusivity and respect. As the day wore on, Olivia found herself constantly on the move, offering guidance here, resolving an issue there, always encouraging and supporting her team. By the time closing hour approached, she was exhausted but exhilarated. The last customer of the day was a young woman who entered just minutes before closing. She looked around nervously, clearly feeling out of place amidst the high-end displays. In the past, she might have been subtly encouraged to leave, but today Emma approached her with a warm smile. "Welcome. Can I help you with anything?" Emma asked, her voice friendly and non-judgmental. The young woman hesitated. I'm not sure I can afford anything in here. I just wanted to look around, if that's okay." Emma's smile didn't waver. "Of course it is. Everyone is welcome here, whether you're buying or just browsing. Why don't I give you a quick tour? We have some new collections I think you might like." Olivia watched from afar as Emma led the young woman around the shop, pointing out items at various price points and even suggesting some upcoming sales. By the time they finished the tour, the customer was smiling and chatting comfortably with Emma. As the young woman left, promising to return for the upcoming sale, Olivia felt a surge of pride. This was exactly the kind of interaction she had hoped to foster, a place where every customer, regardless of their background or budget, felt valued and welcome. After locking the doors for the night, Olivia gathered her employees for a final meeting. The excitement of the day still lingered in the air, and the faces that had once been hesitant and unsure now glowed with accomplishment and pride. "I want to thank all of you," Olivia began, her voice filled with warmth. "Today wasn't just about selling products. It was about setting a new standard, about showing the world what this store can be. And you all rose to the challenge magnificently." She went on to highlight specific moments she had observed throughout the day: Emma's kindness toward the nervous young woman, Daniel's patience with the elderly customers, Noah's enthusiasm for promoting the local artists. With each example, she could see her employees standing a little taller, their smiles growing wider. "This is just the beginning," Olivia continued. "We still have a long road ahead of us, and I'm sure we'll face many more challenges. But if today is any indication, I have no doubt that we'll succeed together. We're going to redefine what luxury means in this industry. It's not just about expensive products. It's about how we make people feel when they walk through our doors." As the meeting wrapped up and the employees began to disperse, chatting excitedly about the day's events, Olivia felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Michael standing there, a satisfied smile on his face. "Well," he said, "I'd say that was a successful first day. You've certainly shaken things up around here." Olivia laughed, the sound filled with relief and joy. "We got off to a good start for sure, but we still have a long way to go." Michael nodded, his expression turning more serious. "You know, when we first acquired this store, I thought it was just another business deal, but watching you today, seeing how you've started to transform this place, I'm starting to think we might be doing something bigger here." Olivia's eyes sparkled with determination. "We are, Michael. This isn't just about making a profit. It's about changing the way the fashion industry thinks about inclusivity and respect. And if we can do it here in one of the most exclusive stores in New York City, then we can do it anywhere." Michael finished her sentence for her. "You might just be starting a revolution here, Olivia." She grinned, the fatigue of the day temporarily forgotten in the face of the possibilities ahead. "A retail revolution, I like the sound of that." As they walked out of the shop together, Olivia paused to look back at the building. The lights inside were dimming, but she could still see the changes they had begun to implement. The more diverse mannequins in the windows, the local art on the walls, the rearranged layout that made the space more accessible. It was just the beginning, but the shop already felt different. It felt right. "You know," Olivia said softly. When I first bought this place, I saw it as a challenge, a way to prove myself in the business world. But now I think it might be more than that. It might be a mission. Michael squeezed her shoulder in support. If anyone can turn this industry around, it's you, Olivia. Just remember to pace yourself. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will your new vision. Olivia nodded, taking a deep breath of the cool night air. You're right. We got off to a great start, but there's still so much work to do. Ethanoro will start putting together the community outreach programs Emma suggested, and we need to reach out to more local designers, especially those from underrepresented communities. Oh, and we should look into hosting some educational events about sustainable fashion. Michael laughed, holding up his hands in mock surrender. Okay, let's save some of that enthusiasm for tomorrow. For now, let's just celebrate today's success. Dinner's on me. As they walked down the street, Olivia's mind was already buzzing with plans for the future. She knew there would be challenges ahead, difficult customers, industry pushback, the constant struggle to balance profits with their new ethical standards. But after today, she also knew that she had a team behind her, people who believed in this vision as much as she did. This store, once a symbol of exclusivity and discrimination, was on its way to becoming something entirely new, a beacon of inclusivity, respect, and positive change in the fashion industry. And Olivia was ready to lead the way, one customer at a time, one day at a time, one small revolution at a time. As the shop faded into the darkness behind them, Olivia felt a sense of peace wash over her. Ethanoro would bring new challenges, but it would also bring new opportunities, and she was ready for them all. The journey had only just begun, and the best was yet to come. As the weeks turned into months, Olivia's vision for the shop began to take shape in earnest. The changes were visible not only in the shop's layout and inventory but also in the very atmosphere of the place. Where there had once been an air of exclusivity and judgment, there was now warmth and welcome. But with the change came challenges, and Olivia found herself navigating increasingly complex waters. It was a busy Saturday afternoon when the first major test of their new policies arose. Olivia was in her office reviewing the latest sales figures with Michael when Emma burst in, breathless. Olivia, we have a situation, Emma said, her usual composure slipping. There's a customer. Well, she's causing quite a scene. Olivia shot to her feet instantly. What's going on? As they hurried to the sales floor, Emma filled her in. A longtime customer, known for her expensive taste and demanding personality, was berating one of the newer sales associates. The issue? The store's new, more inclusive sizing policy. As they approached, Olivia could hear the customer's shrill voice cutting through the usual hum of the shop. It's ridiculous, the woman was saying, waving a designer dress in the air. You've ruined the exclusivity of this brand by catering to. She trailed off as Olivia stepped forward, but the implication was clear. The woman's face was flushed with anger, while the young sales associate looked on the verge of tears. Is there a problem here? Olivia asked calmly, positioning herself between the customer and the employee. The woman turned to glare at Olivia. You're darn right there's a problem. I've been shopping here for 20 years, and I've never been so insulted. How dare you dilute these luxury brands with plus-size options? Inclusive, Olivia supplied, her voice calm but firm, representative of our diverse customer base, in line with our commitment to making fashion accessible to everyone. The woman sputtered, taken aback by Olivia's directness. It's just not right, she finally managed to say. This store used to stand for something? Olivia nodded, her expression softening slightly. You're right, this store used to stand for something. It stood for exclusivity, for catering to a select few while making others feel unwelcome. But that's not what we stand for anymore. She gestured around the shop, where customers of all shapes, sizes, and backgrounds were browsing and buying. We stand for the belief that everyone deserves to feel beautiful and valued, that luxury isn't about exclusion. It's about how an item makes you feel when you wear it. The woman's anger seemed to deflate a bit, replaced by confusion and something else, perhaps a dawning realization. But, But what about the prestige? She asked, her voice smaller. If everyone can shop here, what makes it special? Olivia smiled gently. What makes it special is the experience we provide, the quality of our products, and the way we treat our customers, all of our customers. Prestige isn't about keeping others out. It's about setting a standard that elevates everyone. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, to everyone's surprise, the woman's shoulders slumped. I never thought about it that way, she admitted quietly. Olivia placed a hand on her arm. Change can be difficult, but I invite you to give our new approach a chance. You might be surprised at how much more enriching the experience can be when we open our doors to everyone. The woman nodded slowly, her previous anger replaced by a contemplative mood. As Olivia led her to some of their new collections, explaining the philosophy behind each piece, she could see the woman's perspective beginning to shift. By the time the customer left with several items from their new inclusive line, Olivia felt a mixture of exhaustion and elation. It had been a challenging exchange, but a worthwhile one. This was the kind of change she had hoped to inspire. As the shop quieted down for the evening, Olivia gathered her team for a quick meeting. She commended the young sales associate for keeping her cool in a difficult situation and used the incident as a teachable moment for everyone. We're not just changing our policies, she explained. We're changing mindsets, and that's not always easy, but it's in moments like today that we make a real difference. The team nodded, energized by the day's events. As they dispersed, Emma lingered behind with Olivia. Ms. Olivia, she said hesitantly, there's something else we need to discuss. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Oh, what's on your mind? Emma took a deep breath. It's about our supplier for the new eco-friendly line. I've been doing some research and, well, I don't think they're as ethical as they claim to be. Olivia's brows furrowed. What do you mean? Over the next hour, Emma laid out her findings. The supplier, while marketing themselves as sustainable and ethical, had a number of questionable practices in their overseas factories. Nothing was outright illegal, but it certainly didn't meet the standards that Olivia had set for the shop. As Emma finished her presentation, Olivia leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. The line was set to be a key part of their upcoming collection. Canceling it would be a significant financial blow, not to mention a logistical nightmare to find a new supplier on short notice. But as she looked at Emma's earnest face, at the evidence she had carefully compiled, Olivia knew there was only one right choice. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Olivia said, her voice filled with quiet determination. First thing Monday, we start looking for a new supplier, one that truly aligns with our values. Emma's eyes widened. But the collection launch is in just a few weeks, and the financial impact. Olivia held up a hand. You're right, it won't be easy. But if we compromise on our ethics for convenience or profit, then everything else we're doing here is meaningless. We have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. As Emma departed, energized by Olivia's commitment, Michael entered the office. He had overheard enough to grasp the situation. You know, he said, settling into a chair across from Olivia. A year ago, I would have thought you were crazy to make such a decision, but now I think you're right. It's the only choice that makes sense for what we're trying to build here. Olivia offered a tired smile. It's going to be a challenge. We'll need to work extra hours to pull this off. Michael nodded, a spark of excitement flickering in his eyes. Then we better get started. I'll start reaching out to potential new suppliers tonight. As Michael left to make his calls, Olivia turned to gaze out the window. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over New York City. She could see people strolling past the shop, some pausing to peer into the window, at the displays now showcasing a diverse array of mannequins and styles. In that moment, despite the challenges ahead, Olivia felt a surge of pride and purpose. They were making a difference, not just in their store but in the wider industry. Every difficult decision, every small victory, was a step toward the change she envisioned. She thought back to the day she first walked into the shop undercover and faced Ethan's discrimination. So much had changed since then, but there was still so much to do. Returning to her desk, Olivia pulled out a notebook and began jotting down ideas for community outreach programs, plans to collaborate with up-and-coming diverse designers, strategies to make their supply chain more transparent and ethical. The list grew longer as her pen danced across the page. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges. She knew more difficult customers, more thorny ethical dilemmas, more resistance from the industry. But as she looked at the growing list of ideas and initiatives, Olivia felt a renewed sense of determination. This wasn't just about running a successful store anymore. It was about changing the face of fashion, about proving that inclusivity and ethics could go hand in hand with luxury and style. It was about creating a space where everyone, regardless of their size, race, gender, or background, could feel valued and beautiful. As the last light faded from the sky, Olivia stood up to gather her things. Ethanora would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities, and she was ready for them all. Stepping out of the shop, she paused to look back at the building that had become something far more than just a business. It was a symbol of change, a beacon of hope in an industry often criticized for its exclusivity and ethical failings. With a smile, Olivia turned and stepped out into the night, her mind already planning the battles and the victories that lay ahead. The retail revolution had only just begun. What would you do if you were in Olivia's shoes, facing a life-altering decision after a public confrontation and a dramatic revelation? Would you handle the situation with similar composure and resolve, or would you approach it differently? If you found this story of prejudice, redemption, and the impact of standing up for what's right compelling, please consider subscribing to my channel. I've put a lot of effort into creating these impactful narratives, and your support truly means the world to me. Thank you for being a part of this journey. If we compromise our ethics for the sake of convenience or profit, everything else we're working toward becomes absolutely meaningless. We have to back up our words with action. As Emma, now buzzing with energy from Olivia's strong stance, headed out, Michael walked into the office. He'd overheard enough of the conversation to understand the situation. You know what? He began, settling into a chair across from Olivia. A year ago, I would have thought you were out of your mind to make a decision like this, but now I completely agree. It's the only thing that makes sense if we're serious about what we're trying to build here. Olivia managed a weary smile. It's going to be a real uphill battle. We're going to have to put in some serious overtime to make this work. Michael nodded, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. Then we'd better get cracking. I'll start reaching out to potential new suppliers tonight, see what we can find. As Michael left to make those calls, Olivia turned and looked out the window. The sun was setting, bathing New York City in a warm, golden light. She could see people strolling by the shop, some pausing to glance at the window displays, which now featured a diverse range of mannequins and styles that reflected all kinds of people. In that instant, despite the looming challenges, Olivia felt a powerful wave of pride and a sense of purpose wash over her. They weren't just running a store. They were actually making a difference, not just in their little corner of the world, but in the fashion industry as a whole. Every tough call, every small win, was a step forward toward the change she'd been dreaming of. She remembered the day she first walked into the shop undercover, and the sting of Ethan's blatant discrimination. So much had changed since then, it was almost unbelievable. But there was still so much more to do, so much work ahead of them. Turning back to her desk, Olivia grabbed a notebook and started jotting down ideas. Community outreach programs, plans to partner with up-and-coming designers from all walks of life, and strategies to make their supply chain completely transparent and ethical. The list grew longer and longer as her pen flew across the page, fueled by inspiration. The road ahead was going to be tough. She knew that for sure. More demanding customers, more tricky ethical dilemmas, and even more resistance from within the industry itself. But as she stared at the ever-growing list of ideas and initiatives, Olivia felt a surge of renewed determination. This wasn't just about running a successful business anymore. It was about completely transforming the face of fashion, about proving that inclusivity and ethical practices could go hand in hand with luxury and high style. It was about creating a space where everyone, no matter their size, their race, their gender, or where they came from, could feel truly valued and beautiful, inside and out. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared from the sky, Olivia stood up to gather her things and head home. Ethanora would bring a fresh set of challenges, but also a whole new set of opportunities, and she felt ready to face them all head-on. Stepping out of the shop, she paused for a moment to look back at the building, which had become so much more than just a business to her. It was a symbol of change, a beacon of hope in an industry that was often criticized for its exclusivity and ethical shortcomings. With a confident smile, Olivia turned and stepped out into the night, her mind already racing with plans for the battles and the victories that were waiting just around the corner. The retail revolution had only just begun, and she was ready to lead the charge. If you were in Olivia's position, facing a life-altering decision after a public confrontation and a dramatic revelation, what would you do? Would you handle the situation with the same level of composure and unwavering resolve, or would you take a completely different approach? If you found this story of prejudice, redemption, and the importance of standing up for what's right to be compelling, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I've poured my heart and soul into creating these stories that I hope will make an impact, and your support truly means the world to me. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me.